I'm really pleased to be here with Ryan Griffith from Voterfly. Ryan, welcome. Tell everybody a little bit about what Voterfly is.
Sure. Voterfly is an online platform that's high traffic and high visibility for community-focused organizations such as chambers of commerce or newspapers, magazines that are focused on a local community to engage that community and allow members of the community, businesses and individuals to nominate and vote for the best businesses in that area.
And it really does fit for anything that's really locally based. This wouldn't work outside of a broad geographic region like the United States or a state. It really is hyper-focused locally, isn't it?
That's exactly right. We try to focus locally because we want to celebrate those businesses. We want to celebrate local business. We want to drive commerce to those local businesses. You sometimes hear this called a best of or Reader's Choice Awards, People's Choice. It goes by some different names, but that's essentially what the Voterfly platform does. And we specialize in working with chambers of commerce because that is our background. I'm on the board of directors with my local chamber. My wife was president for several years, so we're really plugged in, and we want to continue to stay plugged in.
This must be, running one of these must be a real kick in the pants for a chamber of commerce. I mean, it's got to be fun and a great way to engage your membership and also to recruit new members.
Right, exactly. So there's multiple benefits for running this. There's many reasons why a chamber might want to run this, but as you mentioned, new membership is a big one. Because we like to call it casting a wide net. We cast a wide net to the community to try to engage as many of those community members, as many of those businesses to participate as possible. And we've seen percentages up to 15% of the community actually getting involved. So when you think about population of an area, being able to engage 15% of them in this one program, that's huge. So with that and with all that attention, what the chamber is really getting there is they're getting an introduction to new businesses that are non-chamber members. It's a perfect introduction, and it's a way to say, we're the chamber, nice to meet you. This is one of the many things we do for commerce and for businesses in our area. And a lot of chambers actually convert non-member businesses into membership.
So one of the ways that you are able to help a chamber generate revenue is through new members, which is a big one, I imagine, especially after COVID. I assume that there are a lot of chambers that are still kind of recovering membership from COVID.
Absolutely. I know firsthand by working with these chambers, most of them are still feeling the impacts of lost membership, and they are climbing back. We are getting back to normal, but they're still feeling some of that pain.
When you go in and talk to a chamber about Voterfly and what it can do for them, what are the things that chamber leaders are really most attracted to?
So the first question is, it's always non-dues revenue. So how do we make money with this program? And we touched on that just a little bit ago. Membership is a big one. Because you're getting the revenue from the new member right then and there. But the big thing there is the recurring revenue, and that member may also then bring in new members, right? So it's important to continue to expand and to grow that membership. So I think that's a big one. The other big piece is ad and sponsorship revenue. So again, this is a high traffic platform, a high visibility. We can get 10 to 15% of a community, like I said, is not uncommon to hear. So with all that, those are eyes, and that's a perfect opportunity for an advertiser or a sponsor to get in front of that local community. So chambers make revenue through ad and sponsorship sales through the platform.
And I imagine that for a business that wants to either be a sponsor or an advertiser for this, this is really a great way for chamber to put the spotlight on itself in terms of what it's doing to help the community.
You got it. That's another it's not financial necessarily, right? It's a non-tangible benefit. It's getting out there and getting the brand recognition of the chamber or the organization putting this on. So it's putting that name in front of so many people, and that's a big soft benefit that that just really kind of makes an impact.
In terms of actually implementing this, your platform allows for identification of businesses that to be selected for this and advertising, is that right? And sponsorship.
That's right. That's right. So we actually connect with Google. So when businesses are nominated, we reach out to Google and we supplement that nomination information with information from Google to basically beef up that nomination, pull in more information, and that can actually be turned into a lead list for the chamber. So we kind of talked about how to recruit new members, how to get more membership. And so with that supplemented information, we have now contact information, address, phone, etc. And so it's a perfect way to just kind of bring that chamber closer to being able to make contact with that business.
We kind of touched on it a minute ago, but in terms of that perception of a chamber being a part of the community, how important is that to leaders?
Oh, I think that's completely vital. I have in the past spoken with some chambers where some businesses aren't even aware that a chamber exists, and that could be absolutely detrimental. So making sure that the chamber is prominent within that business community is so important, and making connections with affiliate organizations or sibling organizations like a Park and Recs, etc. So it's so important that the chamber is out there showing that they are prominent in that community.
And from that standpoint, strengthening relationships with local government, with the newspaper, with Parks and Rec is just, I feel like there's so much intangibles here that are so important in terms of that perception that, hey, as a chamber leader, we are really connecting with the community, and that the community begins to feel the same way.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And again, by doing this, you're touching so many people who haven't had that introduction. And it's not just businesses. The chamber isn't just touching businesses in this. They're also touching community members, residents, and putting themselves out there. So you're right. There's lots of intangibles to doing something like this.
And I think it's important to just say that, just because it's a business-related thing, that because of what it is, it does involve the broader community, and that's also really important for a chamber to be considering, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, you're right.
Talk about the process of putting one of these together, and what kind of a commitment's involved in doing a best of.
Right. So usually this is an annual thing. You'll typically see, we'll go back to the concept of a best of or reader's choice underneath those terms that you might hear out there. You're going to see something like the 2023 Reader's Choice Awards. So it's an annual program. And so with our model, we have annual subscriptions. That's how it works, pay for the year. And then we actually work with you to establish your best of. We don't just hand you the keys to the software and say, good luck, we hope you succeed. We've done so many of these before. We know what works and what doesn't work. And if you haven't done one of these before, it's very difficult to pull off, especially on the first year, and pull it off in a way that you can walk away and feel successful. And so I think that's one of the big advantages that we bring, is that we work with you. We share all of our knowledge of how to execute this successfully. And so long as we follow the patterns, we end up having successful races for organizations doing this for their very first year. They walk away going, this was fantastic. So in terms of what it takes, we do it annually, once a year, typically. And then you're going to run your best of for about 4 weeks to 6 weeks. And you might have a couple weeks before that of preparation. So that's really what it looks like. Some organizations will take it a step further if they have the resources and actually put an event at the end of this where they award those businesses. And so that's when we talk about revenue, that's a whole additional opportunity there for the chambers to generate more revenue on the event side of things.
One of the things that you mentioned is the first go around, it can be a little more difficult. What are some of the challenges that an organization runs into that you guys are able to really help them get through and then be ready to go a second year?
Sure. I think timing is a big one. So if you're not familiar with how to structure the timing and the announcements of launch of nominations, launch of voting, close of voting, if you're not familiar with how to put together a good category list, a category list that's going to be inclusive enough to where it's actually going to attract businesses that aren't, speaking about chambers, not chamber members. You need to be thinking about these things. So we've learned trial by fire through years and years of doing this, what's necessary to make it successful and what to avoid to make sure that we don't, fall in those traps. So those are some of the things that I mentioned that someone would want to look out for if they were to do that for their first year. But again, with us, we walk you through all that to make sure we don't run into those issues.
And do talk a little bit more about the timeline. Obviously, I can't engage you today and have one of these up and running tomorrow, can I?
You'd be surprised. So as far as our software system is concerned, we absolutely can get the site up and running, but it's very important to consider the communication to the community. If you're going to engage 10 to 15% of a community in this, no, you're not going to be able to launch it tomorrow. You need to think about, what are you going to say? What do we have? Press releases? Do we have imagery that we're sharing on social media? Again, these are all things that we provide. We have templates to get you going so you don't have to come up with this. So
that's got to make a huge difference, having those templates available. So what is the best timeline in terms of from the time that I engage with you, yes, I want to do this, to the time that I actually start this process with, actually having the voting? What's the best time frame?
Yeah, so 3 to 4 weeks before launch would be reasonable. We have actually engaged with a chamber that launched in under a week and a half from talking to us. So we were able to turn that around very quickly with them. But again, they couldn't have done that if we weren't able to share those resources that we have to fast track it. So it was key to making that actually happen. Without those resources, we wouldn't have been in that position.
But I also imagine that's not an ideal time frame. I mean, I think from a marketing standpoint that I'd want to kind of hype that it's coming and engage my membership. Hey, this is what's coming down the pike, and really kind of build it up and at the same time have it be something that's really fun for the chamber staff to be promoting and getting going.
That's right. Yep. So 1 month would be our recommended minimum, but we certainly could do it faster. If a chamber knows what they want to do and they have a vision already about how they want to execute and they come to us, we can accommodate that and have had success doing so.
When you look at the number of these that you've run, what are some of the most surprising comments that you get from chamber leaders?
There's some fun ones in there. So we've had members of state assembly that have come up to some of these chamber leaders and joked about how they want their own category and they want to win. We've had mayors come up. So it's kind of interesting to see how far the reach of this can get. So I think one of the things that's interesting that I hear from chamber leaders rather is how much it affects the community, not just the types of individuals I just mentioned, but the community in general. That's just an example. So the effect is huge. And then what ends up happening is their previous goal, the chamber's previous goal of wanting to get that non-dues revenue now becomes a secondary goal because they realize what the impact of this is. And so that becomes now their number one benefit if I ask them. So that's, I think, what's really interesting. When you first start a conversation with the chamber and they're not familiar with you, they want to know tangibly, how can I make money? After they run the program, they say money's secondary, but this right here is really showing benefit by being out in the community. So I think that's one of the surprising things.
I love that, because my sense has always been that chambers, as a generalization, are not the best at really promoting what they do in the community. And this is such a fabulous way to engage members, additional businesses that aren't members, and the community at large in a way that's fun and for the most part easy and exciting. I really think what you're doing is fascinating, and I think it's really great that you are involved on the board of a chamber, so you see it from a number of perspectives, and have seen what to do to make these things work the best. What is the last thing that you think a chamber leader should know about Voterfly and why it's important?
I think it's important for them to know that if they want to experiment with this, they are not on their own. I mentioned this before. They are not on their own. They do not have to come up with this. A chamber is very interested typically in making sure that whatever they're doing, if they're adding a new program, they need to make sure whatever they're doing is easy to implement. And so that's what we're here for. We're here to make sure that it's a success. And you can grow with the platform. It doesn't have to start out being an event with many categories and a complex endeavor. It can start out simple and you can grow with it. So we're here to help that entire process. So,
Ryan Griffith, you are the president and founder of Voterfly, there to help chambers and any organization that's locally based, newspapers, government even, to create greater communication and awareness of these organizations in the community. Totally appreciate what you're doing, and I wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you, Chris.